Today on Flu Tech, we talk about the Smith&Wesson 686 357 Magnum Revolver, the history behind it, and also still, are revolvers still relevant in today's day and age of polymer frame striker fire pistols? Stick around because another fire episode of Flu Tech Armed Citizen Firearm Translution starts right now. Hello and welcome to Flu Tech. I'm your host, the Faceless Gunslinger, and today we talk about America's revolver, the Smith&Wesson 686 357 Magnum Revolver. But before we get started, let's make sure we have ourselves a nice and clear weapon. First, what we're going to do is release the cylinder here. Cylinder release, and hopefully you guys in YouTube land, without pointing myself, can see there's nothing inside the barrel, and there's nothing inside the cylinder. So why, before we get into a little more history, later on I'm going to talk about exactly why revolvers are still actually practical in today's day and age, despite the abundance of polymer frame pistols, and how they still captivate America's mind after all these years, and with more semi-automatic pistols being a lot more accurate now, and also a lot more reliable than they were, let's say, even a couple of decades ago. So this particular revolver was made back in 1981 when it actually entered production by Smith&Wesson. For those of you who might know, Smith&Wesson has been around for obviously centuries, and it is by far one of the most iconic and long producing firearms manufacturing company here in the United States. And they're still making a lot of things, to include now semi-automatic pistols and the M&P line of Smith&Wesson. But yet revolvers are still, in my personal opinion, one of their main draws and one of the main things that Smith&Wesson is known for. So this particular model is a Smith&Wesson 686. And as you can see here, it's in that nice, big, beautiful 357 Magnum Revolver. This started production back in around 1981, and it's based upon Smith&Wesson's L-Frame. And a couple great things about it too as well is that it's a very versatile design. What I mean by that, you can get this in different barrel lengths all the way from 2.5 all the way up to 8 3/8 of a barrel length. So that gives you, as the operator, a whole bunch of different options for if you're still carrying, hunting game, target shooting. You can be the person who decides what type of barrel length that you may want and barrel length you need. Another thing really cool, particularly with this model, the 686, is that even though most six shooters, hence their name, only have 6 rounds, they actually offer a plus version, which gives you one more round and a total of 7 rounds in your Magnum Revolver, which is absolutely very, 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 very cool. So let's talk about why I got into this particular revolver and why I still think it's pretty awesome. So back in the 1990s, I am a gamer. I was fascinated by a game called Resident Evil. And in that game, they had different firearms. And one of the firearms was a 357 Magnum Revolver. And what was so cool about it is that it's a game about zombies. And I'm sure most people know what Resident Evil is about. But it was just one of the most powerful weapons, and the one last weapon really you got on that video game. And when my young teenage self came across this, I was absolutely fascinated with a 357 Magnum. And it was just really, really amazing to be able to, when I came out of Delta, actually purchase one. The one in the game was a Colt Python, and this is obviously a different manufacturer. So let's talk about a little bit more. So like I said, you had different barrel lengths, which is absolutely awesome. I believe there are different versions, but generally speaking, the most of the Smith&Wesson 686s you're going to come across are going to be stainless steel, which I think is just absolutely beautiful. Generally speaking with it, you're going to have A very, very big, unique, as you guys can probably see here. A very, very nice, unique front sight aperture that is made of some type of plastic or lining, which has actually held up pretty well. And just moving back to the barrel, this particular one, mine, is obviously a 6-inch barrel, but it also has a pretty nice rear aperture sight there. As you can see there, you can do for both windage and also elevation. What I really like about it too, all you need is a typical flathead screwdriver, which is a very, very common Honda product around most people's houses. And this is particular version, and Smith is the 686 is a double action revolver. So what does that mean? Once again, we are clear the weapon to make sure it's safe. It's also pointed in a safe direction, which you always want to do, even if you think the weapon is clear. But you have two versions. So with a double action, you're going to have a very, very long pull. Even though it's really not that bad, it's pretty crisp. Let's go ahead and see that. This right here, of course, is the hammer, which most of you guys already know. Let's pull that back. So you can definitely feel the resistance as soon as you start pulling back on the thing. You can see the cylinder rotating there, and you can feel right there that it's about to get released, and then it goes forward and hits home. That's the double action. Single action is really, really crisp trigger, which is really, really cool. And if you just kind of look down here and continue on the side of this, you have your release here. And like I said, this comes in 6 round cylinders too as well. But mine has been around for quite some time. It's in pretty good condition as well as possibly too. And once again, I'm not pointing at you guys. It's not loaded, but hopefully you can see down the barrel a little bit. This revolver itself has been around for quite some time. I put a couple rounds to it, just to say the least, and it's in pretty good condition there. So most of these revolvers too, you can obviously change out the hand grips here if you want to. Most of these are probably going to be coming with some type of rubberized hole grips, which might be one of my favorite manufacturers, and they don't sponsor me at all for this, that has the screws. And it does a really good job of getting a really good purchase on the firearm itself. If you're a traditionalist, you can obviously go on places like eBay and other places online and get yourself some classic wooden panels. But for me, it's really good to be able to just get this really good firm grip and things such of that nature. So going on and going forward, how does this shoot a reliability and accuracy? Particularly in single action, this is a very good nail driver. It fires a really big round here that's fed by that has a 357 Magnum round. I shoot I think it's 150 or 158 grains out of mine. And it does a pretty good job in taking care of business, as you see here shortly if you stick around to the end, what it does to watermelons. And it does it really well and extremely accurate. And like I said, for you, if you do get different rounds with different muzzle velocities, with the basic design and just stock windage and elevation that Smith&Wesson made, it actually has no problem. Even though most people, when they get double action revolvers, they usually stay away from the double action just because there's a lot more longer draw on the trigger purchase. But I can tell you, really, in my personal opinion, finessing this thing and just practicing with it, even though it may be tough, it really isn't that bad. You can still get some pretty good hits here on target. So that's something that you should be thinking about, and make sure you also go ahead and remember that just with training, I don't think you'll have a problem really mastering this. Another really cool thing about this too, Ben, nowadays is that even though it's limited by a 6-round or 7-round capacity with the cylinders, you can get something called a speed loader. And with a speed loader, it makes life really easy. You put it in there, stacked, and then you just load it right into the pistol or to your revolver and get things going. Once again, pretty cool from there. As for durability and ruggedness, without a doubt, this right here is going to be as simple as it comes when it comes down to it. I absolutely love this revolver, and I think it's really good to be able to have around. Once again, different models or different, same model, but different barrel lengths are available for you. Like I said, from 2.5, 2.8, and 3/8. And also from there, you can get yourself so many different things here too as well, to include a modification here of the rear aperture, which is really going to be cool if you want to try to get maybe some type of high visibility type of night sights or something like that. You can put both in the front and the back. So with that being said, that's enough of me jaw jagging. Once again, started production back in 1981. I think it actually started, was designed in 1980, but yet it's still a powerhouse. So after this, I'll give you my full reviews of the pros and cons, things I like about it, don't like about it, and also why I still think revolvers are still a workhorse today in American society. So with that being said, it's time to get your eyes, it's time to get your ears, because it's time to go loud. Welcome back, gunslingers, and that was exciting. Just some more good shooting with the Smith&Wesson 686 357 Magnum Revolver. So now that we're coming towards the end of our video, let's talk about the pros and cons. So here's, in general, why I think that revolvers will still stick around and why I personally think are some of the pros and cons of having a revolver in a particular model. First of all, the pros. One of the biggest things is that you're kind of limited to a degree when it comes down to your semi-automatic striker fire pistols. It's because the magazine is usually kept inside a pistol grip. So you're really going to be really focused on having a standard caliber such as 9mm, 40 caliber, or 40 ACP. If you want to have a round that has a little more punch like a 357, well, you can still put it into semi-automatic weapons like you do with the Desert Eagle, of course, is probably the most famous one, but you're going to really start to increase the size of the grip. And that could be very uncomfortable to get a good purchase on the pistol sometimes for some people, especially if you have smaller hands. It may be a little bit more harder to control for a couple individuals. So that's some of the advantage of having this, that you can have very big rounds like 500 or .50 Magnum rounds out here you can put into these bad boys. And still the pistol grip itself will still remain the same. So that's one of the benefits too. And generally speaking, there are internals in here that I've taken apart myself, but generally speaking, a revolver is going to have a little bit more less moving parts that you don't have to worry about, making it, and generally speaking, a little bit more reliable. Just because it uses a cylinder, what happens is that you already have one part taken out of the cycle, which is the extraction and ejection of a spinning casing, where there's malfunctions that can, and also feeding to a degree, where there's malfunctions that can possibly happen in a semi-automatic pistol when it comes down to it. Another great thing about these, of course, in my personal opinion, is really, it's going to be, generally speaking, just really the heritage of America. I don't know what it is, but there's just something putting that hammer back on a 6-shooter and squeezing the trigger. It's just really, really fun, and it's just really, really amazing. And I think it just goes back to, for everybody who has one of these things, just that image of just going out, being back on the West in a wild frontier that has been so romanticized here in American society, and rightfully so, in my personal opinion. So that's some of the biggest advantage, I think, of having these particular, for having a 6-shooter and a Smith&Wesson L-frame, which is just absolutely beautiful. And you can't argue with this beautiful stainless steel. I mean, just look at this thing. So some of the disadvantages that we're going to have too with this is that the biggest ones are going to be really magazine capacity. You probably can get some, maybe 8 rounds out there for a revolver for 357 Magnum or bigger cartridges, but generally speaking, you're not going to get anywhere close to what you can with a 9mm semi-automatic striker fire pistol like a Glock, for example, where now an energy standard, most striker fire pistols that are so popular in the market now are going to be at least a minimum of 17 rounds. So obviously you're going to go ahead or be at a disadvantage if you're ever in some type of fight. So that's one of the disadvantages of this. Another thing too with these, I would say that that's never a disadvantage, is related to the magazine or the cylinder capacity. It's just reloads are a little bit harder. As I showed you earlier, you can get things like speed loaders, which does help a lot versus putting one round a cylinder at a time, which is obviously a very, very time-consuming process, and have to extract the rounds or the spent casings yourself. But reload time is going to be very, very longer when you compare it to a magazine when it comes down to it. But besides that, I mean, when it comes down to everything else, the double action trigger for most revolvers are going to be kind of hanky and kind of heavy if you're looking for a type of semi-automatic firepower situation. So there's something you got to be really cognizant of when you're doing that too. But once again, good practicing, and you can do modifications and gunsmithing to try to just at least ease up the double action firing just a little bit for those out there. So with that being said, even though I'm a big fan of being practical with a semi-automatic pistol, like of course a Glock, or my other videos I'll show you later with the P99, I am completely enamored and in love with a beautiful stainless steel American-made revolver. And the Smith & Wesson 686, in my personal opinion, will probably never go to my collection because it is just such an amazingly good looking revolver. Really, really love it. And things like that too as well. And you know, if I was going to be going in the bush where I was going hunting or somewhere else where I thought I had to be paired up with some large game, whether it be like a bear or a cougar or something like that, man, this is the gun I would take out there in the woods because I want to be able to have the firepower, the range, and accuracy that the revolver represents and can bring to the table if need be. Well, thank you guys once again. I hope you had a very good time listening to me ramble about American six-shooter here and the Smith & Wesson 686 tongue twister there. And looking forward to bringing you guys some more content. Once again, thank you so much for supporting this channel just by watching it. Love talking to you guys in the comments, things like that. So we got some more great stuff for you coming up. Please take a look at my other videos if you like to. But in the meantime, just make sure you do me a favor right now. Make sure you shoot straight, make sure you shoot safe, and make sure you do not be a victim. Thank you, and take care.